From this moment on, you will now be known as Sharkbait.
Sharkbait! Ooh-ha-ha!
Welcome, brother Sharkbait.
Sharkbait! Ooh-ha-ha!
Enough with the Sharkbait.
Sharkbait! Ooh! Bump.
From Brooklyn, and I'm giving you an update on the SuperCube. Now in this video I'm going to cover things that have changed since the addition of the LED lighting, things that have worked, things that I don't feel have worked, and just an overall update on keeping the planted tank and transferring all of the fish that I have moved in from the outdoor summer tub, as well as some new fish that have been added. So let's take a closer look at the tank. Now, for those of you that have not been following, click that subscribe button so you can get updated on where this all started from and how we came up with the concept. So first of all, this is approximately a 50-gallon cube. It is not a true cube, as the sides here are slightly wider. It is 30 inches in height. I'm using the full spectrum, let's just call them economy LEDs that I got on eBay. So I won't even get into the name of them, but they are full spectrum, which means they have the whites, blues, pinks, greens, as well as a few reds in there, which have been for the most part doing a pretty nice job. So let's go in for a closer look. And a closer look, you will see that there is no hang on the back filtration. It is powered by a sponge filter that I actually made myself using a long piece of PVC, and it is well hidden within the crevice of those rocks. And that, for the most part, has been doing a really good job filtering the tank. The biological cycle is been stabilized and keeping the ammonia at bay with all of the bacteria that has by now been growing on that sponge. Now, one thing that I will add is I did let this tank run for a little over about 2 to 3 weeks. I want to say 2.5 weeks. I did add water from my other tanks to get it started. Basically the extra high tank, which houses my rainbow fish, and I added a lot of plants from outside. Some Rotala, I have some Anubis here. I have some Java fern, some Java moss. There's a few swords. I have a crypt there that has been doing pretty well for the most part. I never had really good luck with crypts, and in this tank it's doing pretty well. I have, what is this? I always get this wrong, but I can't think of the name of it. I want to call it if you know the name of it, just shoot me in the comments below. I'm having like a brain fart moment. I forgot the name. It can't come to me. And a lot of guppy grass. I added the guppy grass only because I have a lot of egg scatters, which are the leopard longfin Daniels that I bred outside in the summer tub. And I have some threadfin rainbow fish, which I'm really curious to see if I can get them to spawn in here. But to the structure at hand, these are oak branches that I got from outside, which I had in my tub for quite some time outside. And for a moment there, I had mushrooms growing. If I can zoom in, I had actually wild mushrooms were growing in there. If you hadn't seen them, follow me on Instagram, D from Brooklyn, for a shot of those mushrooms. They were really cool, and they just went and fell by the wayside, so I just let nature run its course. Also, I have some moss that I got from the backyard. So far I'm trying to keep that growing, keeping it moist, trying to keep that growing on the branches and see if I can actually get that to take hold. The Rotala is really doing really well in this tub. I don't have it planted in the ground. I have it pretty much floating, and low power consumption, this tub. Other than this little Tetra pump, which is powering that sponge filter, I did decide to add one of my old cheap little power heads in here just to move the water. The water seemed a little stagnant, so this is moving some water here. Hard to see with the glare, but okay, that's a better shot. So in there, I added a little bit of carbon. It's less than about 2 tablespoons of carbon, just to get the water moving and to add a little bit of some motion and extra oxygenation in here. You'll see in the back just how big those stones are. I have like 2.5-foot stones in here, which really add some structure and really become the central point for the whole tank, as those center pieces. I have a lot of wood, little small pieces of wood, only because I didn't exactly plant anything into the substrate. The substrate is made up of garden soil, river pebble, and some smaller sickly gravel that I had. Just spare stuff, just to add some structure to the tank. And since I have cories here, I wanted to add something that would be kind of good on their little bellies, and also give some hiding places and like egg scattering points for those egg scatterers, so they're a little less likely to predate on their eggs. And you'll see it's a real struggle to film this tank just because of the amount of LED light that comes down here. They really penetrate through all of this, and it does a good job keeping these plants going. Look at the Java fern just coming out and kind of growing towards the light, as well as, let me zoom out, give you a better look. Probably this will give me a better shot without the glare. This is fake. Yes, this is fake, because before I had the plants in there, I had this little extra plastic plant that I had laying around. I was like, let me just put something in there until I get the plants growing. And I just recently threw this extra piece of Java fern that I got from where did I get that from? I got that from another tank a friend of mine had, and he was like, hey, do you want this Java fern? I was like, all right. I really don't like taking plants from people, because you never know if they got snails and everything, but it just kind of added the cover that I wanted in this little corner, as well as this little lily, which is all of a sudden shooting up a major stalk here. I just wrapped a plant sinker around it, you know, those little soft metal plant sinkers down there, and is just shooting a shoot up. That shoot has grown in the last 4 days. There was no shoot in here. Now it's reaching for the top, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that, as well as my cories back here. Oh, look, you might be in for a treat. You can see the scarlet batis back there, which really love it in here. They have so much cover that I often catch them in this little void back here. There's one of the females. It's really white. Usually you see them really red. Hard to see them because they're so small, hard to focus. Let me see. Okay, there's a better shot. But there's one of the female scarlet batis in there. Loving life. They are used to coming out over here because I typically feed them by dropping sinking wafers in the same places on a regular basis. The sinking wafers are mainly for the cories and for the shrimp. I have quite a few shrimp in here. I have some Japanese algae shrimp. I have some black cherry shrimp in here, and a few that I actually forgot. I know I have Japanese, the algae shrimp. I have some cherry shrimp. That's what it is, cherry shrimp. And I have some black cherry shrimp, or as they call them, black cherry shrimp, which have just found a home. Now, I have been taking these snails out. I got some snails in here that were in the pond, taking them out by the dozens just because I don't want them to make a complete mess of my plants. And I believe they had been for a while, so I've been taking them out. Here's another shrimp over here. And probably the better of my tanks as far as keeping shrimp, because they have so much cover. They have so much ground space to feed. And other than these snails, nobody bothers them. You'll see my marble molly fry also from the backyard. They were born in the tub over the summer, brought them inside. They're doing all right. As well as some pothos that I brought. I just basically moved that from the 20 extra high. Let me just give you a shot of that. So the 20 extra high is like a haven of pothos. That And if you guys have watched my prior videos, what I used to call the quarantine, which is now a home for my albino paradise fish and my regular paradise fish from outside. Uh-oh, this one may be getting ready to have some eggs. It's getting a little plump there. But as you can see, there's a ton, and I mean absolute ton of pothos. I'm constantly cutting it just so that I can see in the tank. But I use this tank. One thing I'll mention while I'm on it, pothos absorbs so much water. This was filled up 3 days ago, and look how the level has dropped. That is the plants and the open top evaporation. So I'll be topping this off a little later and culling for yellow leaves and things of that nature. But back to the centerpiece. So things that have worked in this tank. Things that have worked in this tank, I will say, are the lighting. The lighting is probably a result of having this open gap, not having the water all the way up to the top, but having all of that open space where, you know, it just allows that light to shoot down and penetrate a little better. That's just my opinion. I'm not a horticulturalist, but I have several tanks which I've tried the same plants, and I've got several different results. So all of them LEDs, different plants growing. This one has really boomed. I've been able to take plants out of this, like Kabamba. You can see it's grown all the way up into the surface and stayed perfectly green. This house plant, this is a spider plant that I actually got from my daughter's mother plant. She'd been growing that plant since the 2nd grade. Now she's in high school. I've been just taking pieces and giving it to people and doing whatever. I wanted to see if it would grow in this environment. And if you look real close, you'll see it rooting up. Those are roots. So yes, it can grow submerged, not emerge, but where the leaves are coming out of the water, and it's just using that tank for hydration. So tips on some extra house plants you can use in your aquarium. So far, so good. The pothos I'll be cutting really soon, because one thing about pothos, it grows until it becomes a pain in the neck. And if you can look there, you can see it attaching to the glass via sucker roots. It literally attached to the glass, and you'd have to pull it off to get that off of there. But other than that, negative for the tank. The negatives are, of course, planting. The tank is 30 inches high, so when you have to get something down, you really have to disrupt everything to kind of get down here, which is why I have not been planting things in the soil. I've been attaching the rocks like this here, and kind of just the ones that I planted earlier, I'm letting them grow out, and I'm letting them do what they do. But I do have a lot of dark areas, so I'm limited as to what kind of plants I can put in here. The second, I don't plan on ever taking that sponge out because just look at it, the rocks, you can't even tell that I have a filter in there, except for the bubbling where the PVC comes out the top of the tank. You can see it from the back. But people that come over, they say, well, D, where's your filter? And I was like, well, it's a biotope. Basically, the plants, the soil, are buffering and filtering the water. The only real mechanical that I have in here is this power filter, which is just moving water and just allowing me to use a little bit of carbon in there. I was going to add CO2, which is why I had this cut off plastic bottle. Just the old Japanese way of containing CO2. You just pump it into that bottle, and when the water displaced the CO2, you would know that your tank needed more CO2. But since the plants that I've got in here are not requiring it, keep it simple, stupid. You know me, the KISS method. So everything is doing what it does. Lastly, I added this flexible Java moss branch that you can get at Petco, just because I wanted to add some additional moss cover. A lot of these fish, I just learned as far as the scarlet beta, they spawn in Java moss. So I says, if I could control the Java moss, I would be happy. I just didn't want a patch of Java moss sitting at the bottom of the tank. It kind of looks crazy to me. and I wanted it to be open where I could see what was going on. So that is neither working or not working. It tends to be a work in progress. So stay tuned and we'll see how that pans out. But for the most part, I'm really getting a lot of enjoyment out of this tank, only because A, it's simple, and I might add there's no heater in this tank. If you look really closely, it's hovering at about 70 degrees. There's no heater in here. I heat the basement with my little radiator right now, but the saltwater tanks have a heater. Most of the freshwater, except for my Molly breed out space over there, don't have heaters. The Mollies have heaters. The rest of them are on room temperature. And as you can see, even the Cories are doing pretty well, which have not been known to be kept in such low temperatures. So time will tell. Bear with me. Whether they thrive or survive, it is left to be seen. But they've been in here 4 months and they are doing their thing. So I'm going to call that a wrap. I don't want to get too long in the tooth. This is D signing out with the Super Cube. Just saying, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. You can do it. You can do whatever you set your mind to. Saltwater, freshwater. There is no magic recipe. It is keep a close eye on things. Do your homework. Do your research. And you can do whatever you do when you set your mind to it. This is D signing out. Love, peace, and hair grease. I'm out. See ya.